This is Heather Davis with a special report on cancer. I just want to start off by saying that I'm not a medical doctor. I do have a pre-medical degree, and cancer is close to my heart because my mother died of cancer on October 29th, 2010. She died of a rare form of bile duct cancer called cholangiocarcinoma after almost 5 years of battling it. I've never told the complete story of her struggle with cancer because it is so long and it is so complicated and there's so much heartache that goes along with it just because of the struggles between people wanting her to do certain things and her wanting to please others, her grieving for us and us grieving for her. But I want to talk about an article that I just read in a moment. But I want to also start off by telling you a little bit about her struggle and then my theory on her struggle and how this article just proved to me that my theory was correct and that she could have survived. And that's what I want you to know. Right off the bat, she could have survived. And so here goes. So in March of 2006, April of 2006, my mother discovered she had a tumor, actually 5 tumors on her, they said on her liver, but it was actually on the lobe of her liver that is near the bile duct. That she had 1 large tumor and 4 small tumors. It was inoperable because if they risked removing that tumor, then she could have bled to death on the table because it was so wound up around this blood vessel, this artery. And so it's actually a blessing that it was inoperable, and I see that now. This article that I just read, and I read it, and it makes me so sad for my mom, but it makes me happy for you. So just please hear me out and listen to this video. Okay. Sorry. So I couldn't operate, and my mom, it was like fate that I ended up moving back home right before she got diagnosed, because in the last year I had been researching. I had just moved back from California. I had been introduced to natural health, and I felt like it was that I was put there to help her, which is probably a little grandiose and self-centered, so I apologize for that. But I did. I felt like I was there for a reason. She said to me, I just don't want to do chemo. Or maybe she said, I just don't want to do radiation. It was one of them that she just really didn't want to do. It was radiation. But she didn't really want to do chemo either. She said, I hate vomiting, Heather. And I said to her, cancer is not a death sentence. And yeah, I was quoting that. And I was naive because some people die from it. And from what I just read in this article, it confirms my belief that most of the time they're dying from the drugs and nutritional deficiencies, or one of the two. And I was completely right. And so are many people. And I'll get to that article. Anyway, so she started a natural protocol. We went to a local health food store, and they had a protocol that is very similar to the protocol on worldwithoutcancer.org. Her protocol did not include vitamin B17, which you, I'm sure, have heard of and is very controversial. It did not include that. But it is similar to that protocol, and if you email them, they should email you the protocol because they did for me when she was sick. But this man who owned this health food store, he had his own specialized education, but he wasn't a mainstream doctor and he wasn't a naturopath. But he went to seminars and he had a protocol, and his was almost identical, so he was getting it somehow. That protocol included cod liver oil, and I wish it was the Blue Ice brand fermented cod liver oil because now I know that it is the only kind you can buy that does not have synthetic vitamin A added due to USDA or FDA regulations that force vitamin A supplements to include synthetic in with the natural vitamin A. But it also included a sulfur supplement, a powdered MSM powder that was bitter, tasted awful, but it was part of her protocol. It included proteolytic enzymes, which she took on an empty stomach that were supposed to help her digest her tumor. If she took it with food, it would help her digest proteins, but she took it with empty stomach, it would help digest the tumor. And now with what I've just read, that may have been unnecessary, which is good because they were expensive. She took liquid amino acids, which may or may not have anything to do with this too. I think from my pre-medical degree, they are very important, so I don't think it hurt. She took liquid whole food multivitamin Source of Life brand as well. She drank juiced carrots every day. She ate a handful of raw almonds as well every day. She had a cup of green tea. And I hope I'm not forgetting any of her protocol, but the important things there, she, as a coincidence to when she started all of this. Of course, if it were me now, I would make sure it's organic green tea, or especially that's not from China or Japan. How do you find that though? So green tea is iffy because if it's from Japan, it's radiated, and if it's from China, they've been known to forge organic certificates, and a lot of their products have been known to be laced with heavy metals. So now this wasn't part of the protocol, but as a result of me doing research, she also got off of her statin medication and her statin medication. I found an article that showed, because I knew they messed up your liver and I knew she had liver cancer, but then I went on PubMed and I found one that showed that if you're on statin medications and you have liver cancer in particular, although this video could apply to any cancer from my understanding of this woman, this PhD woman from MIT, who I'm going to talk about in a moment, that I found a study that showed that statins would double the rate of tumor growth in livers. And her doctor didn't want to get her off of it, and she always listened to her doctors, always did what they said. So I printed it out and took it to the doctor. And so as a coincidence, she got off the statins, and that's important here. I hope you made a list of everything I said. It's important because of this article that I'm going to talk about. She ended up getting off her blood pressure medicine because she didn't need it anymore, because she wasn't eating fast food. She had a lot of the supplements that I mentioned were incorporated into a smoothie with organic frozen blueberries, and that's what she had for lunch. Whereas for breakfast, she had the smoothie for breakfast, and then she would have her fresh carrot juice for lunch. And then for dinner, she would eat according to her blood type. And I don't know if blood type diet matters, but ironically enough, for her particular blood type, that did not include wheat. It did say okay to spelt, which I think is also significant because spelt is an unhybridized ancient form of wheat that doesn't have these incredibly high amounts of gluten in them that modern wheat has. And that is, I believe, relevant. So she was eating spelt and grilled fish and steamed vegetables for dinner. Very low carb, this diet. That was her protocol. So she also ended up not needing her thyroid medication anymore. She got down to antidepressants and anti-anxiety, Zoloft and Buspar. She'd been on them for years, and they stayed for most of this natural protocol. But it is very dangerous to stop those medications without doctor guidance. And it's really hard to get doctor guidance because they don't want to admit that they're fraudulent to begin with and poisonous. But if you stop those without tapering off under the guidance of a doctor, it can be very dangerous. And that is what ended up happening to my mother. And I'll get to that in a moment. So she did this natural protocol, and when she started it, she was told she got a second opinion and she got a third opinion. Second opinion was at the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, and the third opinion was at MD Anderson in Texas. No one mentioned Dr. Brzezinski to her when she was in Texas, which I find incredibly offensive, but I'm not talking about him either, but he's someone you may want to look up, Dr. Brzezinski. She had a third opinion, and at the second opinion, I was there with her when the doctor unprovokingly blurted out that she would have 3 months to live, unless she did chemo, and then she would have 6 months to live, and that radiation wasn't going to be necessary because of the location of the tumor, and surgery, of course, was not possible because no doctor would want to take that risk of her bleeding to death on the table, which I believe is fate. It was fate that she couldn't get that surgery because her tumors were trying to save her. So please hear me out, especially if you've been given an unwarranted death sentence by your doctor. Just hear me out. I'm just telling my story, and I'm just presenting information. I'm not trying to cure you. You make your own decisions. So she started this protocol that I've mentioned, and beforehand, the natural health food store owner had told her that if she didn't want to get all the scans, then she could just get tumor marker tests, which are simple blood tests that show proteins that would spill into the blood and show if the tumor is spreading or not. Okay. Doctors don't often want to mention these tests. They're cheap and they don't call them reliable because doctors view certain criteria for telling you that your cancer is spreading or that your cancer is getting worse. And those criteria, my theory is that some of these criteria are incredibly wrong and can kill you. So she had her scans before, and she knew she had a large tumor that was about 10 centimeters wide and 4 small tumors that were each, I believe, 2 centimeters wide. And so she started it, and her scans improved. And I was going to the doctor with her at this point because she decided to stick with the doctor at home. He was local. And a little secret when you go around for multiple opinions, for your type of cancer, they all get the same recommendations from the AMA and the ACA. For this cancer, give this. For this cancer, give that. And they're all going to try that first. Then after you've tried chemo, then they might start experimenting with other poisonous drugs. But they have to try this stuff first. And if you want to go see Dr. Brzezinski, you have to have tried all of the standard treatment protocol first. So you can look up Dr. Brzezinski, but they're not going to let you see him. The FDA will not allow you to see him unless you have already gone through the standard treatment. Okay? I went with her, and they do a thing called a CT scan. And they take, like, say this is your liver and it's big, and they give you a radioactive dye so it can show up on the scan. Okay. So what they give you is a drink that is a sugar molecule attached to a radioactive isotope, and then they put you in the machine, and the cancer cell draws the sugar in. Okay, because cancer cells feed on sugar. And this woman postulates that they're trying to save you because your cells in the rest of your body, they're not able to take in sugar because of certain deficiencies and or statins. So that's one reason why it could be yes, sugar does feed cancer, but if you already have high sugar, that tumor is actually getting it out of your blood, which can cause damage to your body. Okay, so the way that these CT scans work, though, is that it draws it in, and they show a certain level of activity. And this is where my theory comes in. They will measure the activity inside the tumor. What's going on? How much movement? How much metabolic activity is going on? So what was happening when she was on the natural treatment, it was a protocol, it was a whole bunch of stuff, and it was expensive, and that's the problem. It is. So her 4 small tumors that were on the first scan, were not on one of the 2 visits that I went to that he was reviewing subsequent scans with her. Now, at this point, she had received 0 standard treatment. She had stopped her cholesterol medicine. She was somewhere around that time getting off her blood pressure medicine and her thyroid medication that she didn't need any longer. And I remember sitting in the office with the doctor, and he talked about the size of her large tumor, and it was also getting smaller. Okay, so he's talking about her tumor, her large tumor, but he doesn't want to mention the 4, the small ones. So I directly asked him, what about the small tumors? And he said, he flipped through the radiology report, and he said, the radiologist did not mention them. And I said, well, that's good, right? That means her tumors are going away. Well, he couldn't bring himself to say that. Either that or something in their medical training when it comes to being an oncologist is teaching them that tumors going away means nothing. I don't know. But so this was his explanation to me. Well, the radiologist probably just didn't mention them because we're only concerned with the large tumor. Well, to me, if you think of a tumor as a sign that something's wrong with your body, which I agree, even though I think that this doctor is right here, that one I'm going to talk about in a moment, that the tumor's trying to save your life, I agree that it is a sign that something's wrong. Then to me, it would be a good sign that they're going away. I said to him, isn't that the radiologist's job to mention all the tumors? They get paid around $200,000 a year, by the way, and most of them work from home and they look at an image on a computer and then they send it off. He said to me that when they do a CT scan, they do sections. So here's your liver, and they do slices, like in between my fingers here. Okay. And he said, well, we do 2-centimeter sections. So they're probably just falling in between the lines. So here's your resections, and I guess according to him, 4 of them just happened to fall in between and be invisible. Either that, or they were still there, and the radiologist just didn't mention them. But he did not acknowledge that they could be gone from a natural treatment. I asked him, next time will you please do 1-centimeter resections? Can you order that? And he said, yes, I will. The next time we went back, I asked him if they showed up, and they still did not show up. So once again, they shortened the width between the difference of the slices. Okay, and I apologize, it's like hailing outside. And all 4 just supposedly managed to fall in between and not show up, or the radiologist didn't mention them, but he would not acknowledge that they could be actually gone. The large tumor was shrinking. It had shrunk over 1 centimeter in diameter, and it started out over 10 centimeters, so it was getting smaller. And her tumor marker tests were showing negative, meaning that tumor was intact. It was not metastasizing. Okay, you know, you've heard of levels of cancer. It was not metastasizing. And I'm going to stop there for part 1.